The title for this session was, what is the creative economy and how does it function in DC?
What the DC Tech Council does and what I do every day is we almost build the ecosystem that makes it possible for these companies to come into DC, thrive, and grow. That ecosystem is made up of the technologies, it's made up of the capital, the financiers, the venture capitalists, the angel investors, and some subsidies from government research. We also have a lot of service providers that help these companies bring a lot of skills and knowledge to them, as well as resource centers. A business development center at Howard University is invaluable in helping companies move ahead very quickly. And they will also help artists as well as any other commercial enterprise. Part of what we do is fight urban myths in DC. One of those myths is that DC is too expensive for small and growing businesses. We just did a program on Net 2000, which is a tax program and incentives, and Steve was there to talk about how we help people find locations throughout the district. Taking these things into consideration, it's not necessarily any more expensive to base in DC than it is in our surrounding jurisdictions. A few years ago, 2 pharmaceutical companies filed for an IPO just at the end of the crash of the internet bubble crash. Those 2 pharmaceutical companies were based in DC. Although people found that hard to believe that they were not in Maryland, they were here in DC, and both of those companies have recently been acquired for substantial money. We have another story of, we have a new company moving into DC over on 15th Street, a little company called AnyBill, which is growing by leaps and bounds. They handle more confidential, protected data than any company I know of.
Because I actually represent a population that normally is not involved in this conversation. Normally they're on the consumer end or even out of the picture. And I tell you, when we talk about creative economy, we have to say creativity is really born from challenges. And on any given day at about 4:15, if you're in the Lincoln Heights area and you turn into our campus there on Progressive National Baptist Convention, the windows will be open. We have about 40-something young people in there, and you hear them singing our anthem, 1 life pieces to masterpieces, 2 life pieces to masterpieces. We're right on time. We're never late. Our purpose in life is we live to create. And started off with 7 boys creating art, acrylic paint on canvas, using the life pieces to masterpieces as a metaphor for life. Basically taking the challenges, the pieces of your life. You come into this world, a blank canvas, all this stuff is thrown at you, a different culture, a different language, socioeconomic, and so then what do? And so it's finding that innate creative ability to take those challenges, to take those different pieces of your life and sew them into possibilities. And that's what we've done. What's actually happened is our methodology has become our greatest product. How we're developing these young boys, how we're using art as a foundation, creative expression as a foundation for creating responsible human beings who now can understand that their power, in fact, their power is their thoughts, their words, their actions.
And so today we say, broadband is fast email? Well, of course not. It is, in fact, the basic building block of the new economy. These companies that are allowing you, in fact, to take your creative arts, film them yourself with a webcam, and post it to the world. To the world. This is what Verizon is all about. We're about building that network, just like the railroads were built to enable commerce across this great country, just like the airlines were built to enable you to shorten the distances between you and your families. This new broadband network is allowing us to very quickly bring the world together. Commerce is global. Creative economy is global. We can do all these things because companies are being allowed to, in fact, make these investments.
You're starting to see a shift in economic development, and I think that is from where economic development was really focused on company attraction. What you're starting to see and and you can see from even the conferences with the economic development councils is that you're starting to see a shift into what we call talent economic development attraction. So you're really having to start to focus on the worker. So really this idea about image, and so well, the first thing we do is marketing. And so this idea of broadcasting the image that Washington is a very cosmopolitan place to live, 6.1 million residents. 47% of our residents in Washington have a college degree or higher. There's nowhere else in the country that is the case. In the spring, we did a study about Greater Washington's knowledge economy, sort of an expansive look at the professional services, arts economy in Washington, and we found that the area has about 1.1 million knowledge workers, a very competitive knowledge base that positions us really well for the future of the creative economy.
Less than 10 years ago, when I was hiring, so I might come to an organization like yours looking for great talent in the neighborhoods, because people are comfortable. My technicians have to come into your home. And so if I bring them in from the neighborhoods, it's actually an advantage. So this works both ways. It's terrific. But in the past, and I'll give you a quick lesson in telephony, it was simply understanding the green wire connects to this pole, the red wire connects to this pole. You look at the house, figure out the wiring, and boom, it's in. What's changed? Now my technicians will come into your home. They have to set up not only telephony, but broadband access, and in the very near future, video, which means they could have to come into your system, look at which computer, whichever one you chose to buy, Dell, IBM, HP, who knows, figure that out, make sure that you're instructed on how to use the system, then move to your television. Work through that. Make sure that could be an 8-hour process. They need to be very articulate, be able to explain to you what's happening, answer your questions, and make sure they can follow up. It's a knowledge worker, an absolute knowledge worker. So I have to completely change the vision of the majority of my workforce, which is out there with the customers, on what needs to happen, because previously, 70% of the time they never saw you. They were outside your home.
And so often we talk about youth empowerment and claiming your power. And so what we've really done at Life Pieces is we've defined what power is. We let up from 3 to 21. Your power, in fact, are your thoughts, your words, your actions. That is your power. And how we nurture that power, how we at Life Pieces have developed an alternative ideology where their thoughts, words, and actions can be nurtured in such a way to build courage, compassion, and wisdom. I think knowledge, and I think that's one note that I would like to make as we're looking at this creative economy that I think is amazingly exciting, is that we do maybe take a note from Life Pieces to Masterpieces Express, where we say our leaders have wisdom, and we define wisdom as knowledge plus compassion. So it's
I would say that economic development practitioners throughout the country, or even in this region, there are still a lot of folks that are still doing it in terms of the old school economic development, that you go out, you attract the company will bring the jobs, that people will stay, that people will come to the jobs. And I think that's a false perception. I think what we know now in economic development, and hopefully what people are starting to get their hands around, is that, as the speaker earlier mentioned, is that people are very much more mobile. People are moving around. I recently read that by the time someone's 30, they've made 6 to 8 career moves, possibly, in terms of moving for certain types of jobs. And so people are definitely moving around and much more mobile. And I think that economic development really has to be focused on really what can you do to attract the worker? What can you do to attract the talent base to your area? Because that's really where economic development, I think, is going, is that if you focus on the talent base, how do you get the talent base? It really sort of is based about this idea of clustering. Can you cluster the right types of talent bases there? Because then, for instance, if you have the technology cluster, you have the creative economy cluster of the folks that are doing that type of work, you then can have a message to go out and possibly attract more companies that would then bring more jobs.
We want to make sure that the government in DC, the environment in DC, the housing, all of these things make it attractive. If we don't develop the people, the companies, and the will to build on this technology-based economy, we're not going to have the jobs 5, 10, or 20 years down the road.
Yeah, interesting.